I've played a lot of old Tomb Raider games, more than someone realistically should, and throughout the 5 or so years I've had this channel, I've tried to make it clear as to why. Although I've spent countless hours playing the same 52 stages time and time again, I've always looked past the additional content associated with the first 3 games. Perhaps that's because a lot of it was previously inaccessible to me. I do own the Steam version of these games, but I don't currently own a Windows PC which is able to run them. The respective expansion packs for these games were surprisingly added back into the TR1 through 3 Remastered collection earlier this year, and thus I decided to give them a shot. I know I said I was going to make this video back in July, but I became really busy over the coming weeks and almost forgot about playing them entirely. I've now become aware that it's already a week into November, and I challenged myself to write and edit 2 more of these videos before the start of the next year. I thought on a few occasions about splitting this into 3 separate videos, but in order to keep them at a respectable length, I've merged them all into one, and somehow this video has ended up shorter than expected anyways. From what I've gathered, this expansion was released with a PC exclusive edition of Tomb Raider 1 in 1997, a year after the main game was released. While it's barely known outside of the Tomb Raider community, it surprisingly has more content than I expected it to contain. On paper it's only 4 different maps, but each of them took me over an hour to complete. These expansions use the same mechanics and assets from their respective games, and that means Unfinished Business shares the same models, textures, and items as Tomb Raider 1, although even in the original version the save system was altered. Now, out of all the expansions I'm going to talk about in this video, this is the only one that I've played before. I think the last and only time I've completed it was somewhere around 5 or 6 years ago, and therefore I've forgotten almost everything about it. The reason I never came back to it is because of those technical issues I mentioned earlier, but I'll be sure to come back to it more often now that it's more readily available to me. Something I noticed straight away was that the level order has been changed in the remaster. Originally this game started with the 2 Egyptian levels before transitioning to the other 2 Atlantis levels. However, it does make sense to start in Atlantis this time around when it comes to the order of events in Tomb Raider 1's story. Atlantis was my least favourite setting in the main game, but Egypt has always been my favourite, therefore I can't complain too much. Your inventory doesn't get carried over between the main game and the expansion, so the lore must be that in between the Great Pyramid and Atlantis' stronghold, Lara must have emptied all of her belongings while sliding down the slope for an unknown reason. Although that doesn't help much from a gameplay perspective, as upon starting the expansion pack levels you have nothing besides the default pistol to defend yourself, no ammunition and no medpacks, and yes, the stupid monsters have returned. So it really would have been nice to still have the 50 shotgun shells that were in my inventory 30 seconds ago. And I'm going to be completely honest, these first 2 levels aren't anything special. Not bad by any stretch, but I don't see any reason to play them again. It's definitely a lot more difficult than the main Tomb Raider 1 experience, as resources are a lot more scarce, and both stages have around 40 of these monsters to deal with each. I already expressed my distaste for the inclusion of these enemies in my TR1 video from February, but it's worse here than it was there. I do really enjoy the swan dive part though. I am well aware that I've spent too much time complaining about unfair traps with these games, but this boulder room must have been designed by a preschooler. Who thought this was a fun idea? And I also have to mention the instant kill sand trap. When I first died to it, I last saved 20 minutes ago, one of the saddest moments in my gaming career, and I've died in the void with full netherite. The Egypt section on the whole is a lot better, and not just from a visual standard. These were my favourite maps in the main game, so I was pleased to see more of them here. The first one of these new stages starts in a familiar area, which is actually the opening room of City of Kamoon from the original chapter, although now it's been flooded with water for some reason. Really nice locale nonetheless. Moving on through a linear sequence of new rooms, you eventually emerge in an outdoor area, which are rare to see in Tomb Raider 1 due to the technical limitations at the time of development. And then starts the final stage of this short endeavour, which also happens to be the longest and most complex. Now, long and complex can either be some really good wordage or really bad in these games, but I'm happy to report that I'd comfortably categorise this map in the former. It reminds me a lot of Sanctuary of the Scion from the main game, but a bit longer. Still among the best stages in the TR1 saga, although I could do with less block pushing. I couldn't decide whether I like this level or the previous one more, but does it really matter if I thoroughly enjoyed both of them enough to make me want to play them again? Okay, this is future me changing the script while editing the video, and I just noticed that I was switching the graphics settings all the time while recording the gameplay. So it seems really inconsistent, and I'm sorry about that, but I can't be bothered to go back and record it all again, so it will just have to do. To give a final summary on this, I think it's pretty good. Definitely try it if you haven't already, and compared to the main game it's really short, but don't let that deter you from giving it a shot. I'll be sure to return to this in the future, and I can say that it was a mostly enjoyable experience. And so here we have Tomb Raider 2 Golden Mask, which, like the previous expansion, is a direct continuation of the TR2 campaign. I was displeased to find that 4 of the 5 maps included in this set share the Tibet theme, which happened to be my least favourite chapter in Tomb Raider 2, and unfortunately these levels share a lot of the same issues. I'm actually not sure if there is a coherent story in this particular outing, and even where these levels are set. They use the same textures and enemies as the Tibet chapter in the main game, however there is a lot of Soviet imagery in what appears to be Russian text in one of the stages, so I'm not entirely sure. Because this continues the Tomb Raider 2 saga, it follows the same level design principles with a focus on linearity, action, and combat. I usually like my Tomb Raider games with more combat, but then I remember that the gunplay in this game is absolutely ridiculous. You just have to memorize where the enemies are. That's the best advice I can give, and the only advice I can give to get through the fights pain-free. If you can remember their locations, you can kill them before they even appear on screen, and it also uses a lot less ammunition. Because the arsenal from the first game was rather small, I was excited to change to using a bigger range of artillery to play with in this game. Thankfully I found an AR in the first level, and while it's not as overpowered as it was in Tomb Raider 3, it's probably still the best weapon you can obtain in this game. When I got to around the halfway point of the first level, I was stunned at what I found in this room. I think in every single video I've posted to this channel over the last 6 months, I've complained about the snowmobiles. It was bad enough that they were only featured in one map in the main story. But once again, I've had to mute every single clip where I'm driving it because the sound is so cancerous, but of course that's not the only problem with the snowmobile, as you already probably know. However, this time around, I'm not actually sure if it's mandatory to use the thing, as there isn't any large pits you need to cross like there was before. Unfortunately, the machine gun snowmobiles have also returned, but they aren't too bad to deal with if you can get to a vantage point and happen to have the M16 I just talked about. As long as they don't drive behind a wall, you can pretty much shoot them from an infinite distance, and the high damage also means you can do it really quickly. Lara aims this weapon flawlessly while standing still, but in a scenario where you have to run while firing it, her aim becomes similar to that of Thomas Crook's, and therefore completely invalidates it for use on the same level of ground as your enemies. While the first 2 stages took place in a complex of warehouses, the third one changes things up a little bit, as you venture through some strange blue cave complete with the liquid gold waterfall, and no, you can't swim in it. This level is rather heavy on the platforming, and is probably the best one featured in this video so far, although I'm clueless as to how all these eagles managed to get down here and survive, as well as the lone polar bear, which might be the most random thing I've ever seen. So much to the point that I almost feel bad for laying waste to it. In fact, I think this level is so good that it rivals the ones featured in the main game, and for a PC exclusive expansion pack map, it's a shame that not many people are even aware it exists. Unfortunately, the last map couldn't compete with the previous one, as while the gold was kind of cool and novel at first, it starts to get annoying very quickly. I died in this level the most out of the 14 I played in preparation for this video, and while I don't want to spend too much time complaining about it, the way the level designer has integrated the gold into the platforming sequences is really frustrating. If you watched my last video, you'll know that I wasn't a massive fan of that switch maze puzzle in Tomb Raider 3, or furthermore any puzzle that has no method or completely relies on trial and error. This series of caged rooms right here is like that maze, but 1,000 times worse. Essentially you just have to pull some switches in a combination and get out of the room. but they have to be done in the correct order, and to my knowledge, there aren't any hints at all. Guess how long it took me to complete this section? 17 minutes. 17 minutes of mindless lever pulling and aimless running around. This level is aesthetically pleasing, but that's the only nice thing I can really say about it. Far from the worst maps I've had the displeasure of completing without a guide for one of these videos, but it's at an equally far distance from the best, and overall a disappointing way to finish the expansion pack. Here are my final statistics. This one took me a lot longer to complete than Unfinished Business, and was noticeably more challenging. I went out of my way to find all 12 secret collectibles this time, as there is one more additional map you can play if you manage to find them all. And this right here might be the weirdest TR level of them all. It's obviously made as a joke, but for the sake of consistency I'll critique it like the other ones. It's a spoofed portrayal of Las Vegas, complete with weird-looking billboards, Lara's butler, and the return of the T-Rex. However, the comedic existence of this map provides more entertainment for me than its gameplay, as it's mostly bland and uninspired, as well as reusing a lot of assets from existing Tomb Raider 2 levels. It feels a lot like something a fan made in a level editor, rather than an officially licensed product made by a series of experienced developers. Still, it was fun for what it is, and could be considered as the better ending for the expansion due to it being superior to the final main level. So to sum up the Golden Mask as a whole, I'd say it's marginally better than Unfinished Business, and the third stage in particular was by far among the best. I still think it faces a few minor problems like the snowmobile being included, but overall it's definitely worth playing. Finally, I played Tomb Raider 3's expansion, The Lost Artifact, which continues one of the side storylines from the main game. This expansion pack was the largest of the three, containing 6 levels, but this was by far the one I enjoyed playing the least. It's just another case of it suffering from the same design flaws featured in the first 2 games, and like before, playing the game ended up being more laborious than it was fun. It includes 3 chapters, none of which were anything special to be honest, and there was also more aimless running around in them than I thought there would be. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the Lost Artifact for a reason I'll talk about in a minute, but one of the things I have to say is the save game bugs in this game are on another level. I don't understand why, but the game kept crashing on me whenever I tried to save and load a file. It meant I lost a lot of my gameplay footage, and I'm not sure if it's related to this, but I also didn't get any achievements on Xbox for completing the expansion. Although taking the bugs out of the equation, I still don't think these levels have much to be proud of because most of them were really boring. The first 2 took place in Scotland, which is not a great locale for a Tomb Raider level, although I understand that's subjective, but some of the traps and secrets were nice. Chapter 2, one of the more random settings we've seen in the series, the Eurostar Tunnel, featuring the return of the ATV from the main game, although the level design in this section doesn't accommodate it very well at all. And in fact, I think I'd rather use the snowmobile. The one redeeming quality of this expansion was both the level that follows the Channel Tunnel ones, which is mostly set underwater. That was a really good level. And also the penultimate and final levels were also pretty good. One of them set in this zoo type of place, and the other features the return of Sophia Lee from the main game, which I definitely didn't expect. I did give Tomb Raider 3 some credit in my review video for having some good combat sections, but I think the expansion pack suffers from not having enough of it. I'm sorry for keeping this section of the video really short, I had to scrap a lot of the script, but as I said, I lost a lot of footage from the constant crashes, and I don't have the time to replay the expansion for the purpose of this video to get more, nor do I feel okay with using somebody else's footage. If you're watching this video because you want to know about whether or not the Lost Artifact is worth your time, the best answer I can give is if you like the level design philosophy of Tomb Raider 3, you'll probably enjoy it, but if you didn't, you probably won't, so I don't know, I'd give it a miss if that's you. I knew before I started playing the expansion that a lot of fans hold it in high regard, but I'm afraid I can't say the same. Approach this one with caution, and remember to save as frequently as you can because of the bugs. There's one more map in this collection that I'm yet to play and document, and like the final Golden Mask stage, it's unlocked by collecting secrets, not the ones from the Lost Artifact expansion, but the main campaign in Tomb Raider 3, which if you haven't guessed already, is extremely difficult and time-consuming. There are, I believe, a total of 70 secrets across the 19 maps in the game, but unlike my playthroughs of Tomb Raider 1, 2, and the TR2 expansion, I didn't collect them all at the time of when I last played it. Maybe I should have just spent the extra time to get all the secrets during my playthrough from this summer, but it's too late now and I can't be bothered to replay the entire game just to get the secrets to play one extra bonus stage that doesn't even look that fun. I might do it at some point, but I think the game has made me suffer enough already. And so that is 70 of the 71 TR1 through 3 remastered stages completed, and will probably be the last time I talk about this game for a while. A few days ago, the supposed final patch was released, which added some cool stuff. You can now see boss health bars while using the classic graphics. The pause menu has been updated to have a blurred background, and this weird QR code has been added to the main menu, which seems slightly awkward.
I just scanned the QR code on the new update on the game, and it led me to this page. What is this? Would you like to sign up to potentially playtest future product with no S on it?
The survey reminds me of a similar but more outdated type of thing I found in the manual of my physical disc of TR3, except you send this one by post, and you can win this weird looking VR headset that looks like it will induce more headaches than entertainment, or a unique trip to Rome with the real, yes real, Lara Croft if anyone is interested. I don't know how I just went from critical thinking to a poor attempt at comedy in 5 seconds of writing the script, but whatever. I know this video specifically was a little short, and I'm sorry about that, but I don't know, maybe that's just because there was less material to cover in it. I'd also like to thank everyone who viewed, liked, or commented on my last video. Really appreciate that. In terms of what to expect over the next few months, I'll hopefully get something out in December, and depending on how that goes, maybe January, but I can't promise anything. And as we all know, February is going to be another important month for the community, so I'll have to put out a video then as well. But that's everything to note for the time being, and if you have any recommendations for other content I should look into, by all means suggest that in the comments and I'll have a look at that at some point.